Hi. Yes. We're back after a bit of a hiatus. I'm hosting again as this seemed to be the best precaution to take in the event that Christian encounters similar technical difficulties to the ones he encountered on the last episode that we were able to put out, as he has not had a chance to retest the application and at the back end services on the current Facebook Live iteration on his device. He will be here shortly. I launched very slightly early, just you know, to ensure timeliness. Here he is now. Let's see. Got Canada versus Finland going, IIHF U18 Men's Worlds. Canada is up 4-1 currently after a power play goal was just scored by Finland. As Cole Rezhny, recently appointed assistant captain of Team Canada, was in the box serving a minor for interference. Pretty one-sided game prior to this. Very efficient shooting by Team Canada, but a little bit of dynamism added to that situation by that power play goal with a good amount of time left in regulation. This is definitely a good showcase for Canadian talents. You know, a lot of good players were bumped early from the CHL postseason this year, so it's been a good look at 2025 and 2026 draft eligibles that we might not have typically gotten. So definitely enjoying it so far.
Oh yeah, what a couple of weeks of hockey it has been.
Indeed.
Nothing too surprising in the NHL, at least as far as I'm concerned. None of the current playoff series situations are outside of expectation. That might be an unpopular take, provided Winnipeg's Tide coming back to the peg. But we all knew that their blue line was subpar for a while. Pretty big group and pretty underwhelming puck moving ability vis-a-vis, very similar to a lot of teams that missed the playoffs, have very similar blue line constructions. So, not really shocking that they're starting to struggle, when the guy who bails out poor defensive play constantly, sees half of the goals that St. Louis has scored in this series from tips and redirects through traffic. Like, imagine just being a big defense, a big blue line with really a very low ability to kill zone entries. I mean, one of the worst decors in the postseason. Not a lot of mobility in that group outside of Morrissey. You know,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they'll figure it out. Maybe they won't. That's the fun thing about hockey is, some teams have a bad day and they figure it out, like Carolina after Game 3. And, it's really fascinating how things have gone so far. Nothing crazy. I think we've gotten exactly what we thought we would across all of these series at this point. Very briefly sliding over to the PWHL as the Frost have not dug their own grave, but boy, have they made their path to the back to the postseason much more difficult with a regulation loss this evening. losing to New York 2-0 at home. At home? Yeah. In a game against, a team eliminated from the postseason. Very tough. Jumping back a little bit on some of my written content, Minnesota's goaltending has been subpar, the worst in the league this year. Despite New York's success and non-success, Corinne Schroeder's still a top 3 goalie in the
Oh yeah.
league, and she showcased that again today, where she got the full John Gibson experience with a 17 save first period,
Yeah.
and just really a great effort by the defensive structure, for New York. Micah Zandy Hart playing 28 minutes in the game. Just a great effort, and to just really quickly touch on the last 3 games, Boston Fleet finally got depth scoring, a game where nobody in their top, really their top scorers actually got a goal. It was exactly what they needed. And, I saw some people that they played their best game of the season. I'm like, they still got outshot 29-15 and had a pretty remarkable PDO bender again. Like, they got their depth scoring when they needed it, but I still wouldn't be. I'm still not particularly optimistic about their postseason hopes until they can put together a far more consistent performance than that. We shouldn't be in a world where we're celebrating a game where a team, and I want to make sure I get my stats right on this real quick. Is goddamn. Wrong game. Wrong button. I'm not in the world of celebrating a team that gets 2 shots on goal in a game in the third period of a game that they're up 3-0. Like, that's not a sustainable way to achieve victory, but they are also deeply nested into a playoff spot at the moment where Minnesota would have to basically win out to get themselves into the playoffs. So they're sitting pretty based off of past successes. And finally, last but not least, the Ottawa Charge did the most effort to put a nail in Minnesota's coffin with a shorthanded game-winning goal in the last 13 seconds on Saturday afternoon. Pardon me. So really, PWHL. By the next time we convene for the podcast next weekend, the playoff bracket will be set, which is pretty exciting. And last postseason in the PW was some of the best content we've had on the Black Stitch Hockey website, and I hope that this year is just as fun.
I will say, pivoting back to an earlier talking point about the Winnipeg decor. It is funny thinking about like how poor their asset management with the slim pickings is shaping up to be, because like you think we're looking at a very, very real possibility that Dylan Sandberg gets offer sheeted this summer, and they won't match because they'll have tied up too much cap and Pionk. And I think that emphasizing Pionk over Sandberg is just a microcosm of them deserving everything they have coming to them.
For sure, and I mean, just that whole group, like, and I'm not going to pig pile on this guy because he gets a lot of, probably, I don't know if I'm going to say he gets more hate than he deserves, but like, I can't even think of a comparable player in my lifetime to Logan Stanley, of just a guy who was drafted high, and just he's not, at no point has Logan Stanley put it together to be really anything in the National Hockey. Like, sure, that's not fair to say he's not anything, but like he's a perennial play killer on offense for himself. He's not a high impact player on defense. He's not particularly valuable. He's played 200 games in 5 years, and like he's in the lineup a lot of nights, and when you look at that whole decor, like, bringing in Luke Shen, like, didn't really move the needle because, he's more of what they already, have done wrong. Like, Hayden Fleury has not moved the needle in any jersey, much like Logan Stanley. He's another high draft pick where it just never clicked. You're running high minutes for Dylan DeMello, and it's just like, and I think we talked about this in passing, at least, in our group chat about, like, this team has some really good fucking players in their forward group, but, like, eventually having the blue line group they have and the bottom six that they have is eventually going to be a problem, and all of a sudden it's a problem. Now, to be fair, their second line currently being Niederreiter, Nemesnikov, and Perfetti isn't the worst thing in the world, but really you feel, the weight and the impact of Ehlers and Velarde not being in the lineup, and, I don't love to see it for the Jets, but, you look at the team they're playing, and, I'd take Philip Broberg probably over every player on their blue line, not named Josh Morrissey right now. Like, it's like they got a bad matchup against a good coach, against not an overwhelmingly great team, but nonetheless a good hot team with yeah, it is what it is for Winnipeg. They would have had just as much trouble with Minnesota with, their defense because, you can't hide all of their bad defensemen from Kirill Kaprizov. And, that's a thing where, like, Vegas is having trouble, and, like, Vegas doesn't have to hide their defense. Like, you can say what you will, but Nicholas Hague and Zach Whitecloud are still viable, second pairing caliber defensemen on any other team in the league. Like, Vegas is a much better team defensively, and they're having trouble with Minnesota, and they equally probably would have had similar trouble with St. Louis just on depth. Yeah, it's a shame.
Indeed.
Dang old shame, Bobby. Cannot believe Logan Thompson is playing tonight.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sheesh.
Though, I am pretty excited for Jakob Dobes, however that last name is pronounced. Dobes. Yeah. I like how he pretty much came out of literally fucking nowhere for them. Very, and regardless of how this playoff run goes for Dobes with Montembeau out, I do love the Yaroslav Halak energy of him just being that random long shot Chechian goalie. If I had a nickel for every time a random Chechian goalie for the Habs showed up in the playoffs, I'd have two nickels. Of course, Dobis can't live up to Halak's aura of having played for the Lewiston Maniacs at one point.
Damn right.
It's just the one thing he'll never have.
There was a select group that was fortunate enough to wear one of the greatest logos in the history of the PHL. David
You
Perron
know,
so amongst that ranks as we've discussed in the past, but keep going.
I'd love to just get the whole career retrospective on Halak and his adventures from playing for Bratislava to the Maniacs to Hamilton to fucking Long Beach Ice Dogs and the Coast through all of his NHL adventures.
Oh yeah.
Man had a interesting career, to say the very least. And at that point, speaking of the Maniacs and interesting careers, I think it's time to pivot to some prospect content.
Yeah. So, let's see. So in some USHL postseason action that went down yesterday, we had the Lincoln Stars defeat the Waterloo Blackhawks 4-3. Let's see. As well as the Muskegon Lumberjacks defeat the Dubuque Fighting Saints by a score of 7-4. Let's see. This is just effectively the commencing of the semifinal rounds for the Clark Cup. Waterloo took game one against Lincoln a couple of days back by a score of 6-4, while Muskegon were victors in the first game of their series by a score of 2-1. Um, let's see. So therefore, we have a split situation wherein one series is knotted up 1-1, the other a 2-0 edge. Let's see. Dubuque and Muskegon resume action in 2 days, whereas and then play a back-to-back if necessary. Let's see. On the 30th. Hold on just a second. Is my mic working?
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah, I did have like a bit of a weird glitch thing that happened as I was just toggling with some settings, so I wanted to make sure that didn't get too out of hand there. But if my audio is still coming through, then great. Let's see, and of course, Waterloo and Lincoln will resume action on Wednesday definitively. That is a guaranteed matchup. Within the best of five format utilized in the USHL. Let's see. Of course, we have the BCHL postseason going on currently as well. The Penticton Vs have progressed to the conference finals in their farewell tour of the BCHL prior to their joining the WHL as an expansion franchise beginning in 25-26. They're facing another defector in the of their own ilk, so to speak, in the form of the Brooks Bandits, of course, former AJHL team. Two very, very great, historic talent producers in the Tier 2 junior level, so it should be very good. Of course, we also have the Chilliwack Chiefs and the Victoria Grizzlies facing off in a 7-game postseason series. Both of these kick off on Friday night. Should be interesting to see, what's kind of a very historic BCHL season, just because of, these the culmination of different off-ice narratives that have evolved over the last couple of years playing out. And we'll see who comes away with the Fred Page Cup when all is said and done. Let's see. without getting too into detail, as I post, pretty frequent updates about these in terms of, you know, series results. I'll just run down what the CHL playoff scores were for today. Let's see. Of course, there is still action that is still ongoing, such as the Barrie Colts Oshawa Generals matchup in the Eastern Conference of the OHL. Oshawa's currently up 2-0 at with 13:27 remaining in the second period, and are currently on a power play. Later on tonight, we'll have the Portland Winterhawks take on the very, very offensively deep and talented Spokane Chiefs. That game starts at 8:05 Eastern Time. Let's see. But earlier in the day, let's see. The Western Conference OHL finals had, of course, very fierce rivals. Kitchener versus London. Great matchup always. Bit one-sided again as London emerged forward 6-2 victors. Pretty impressive performance on London's part as captain Denver Barkey. Didn't have the happiest birthday today as he had to miss the game with an injury. But of course, London still won by 4 goals with Jacob Julian, Winnipeg Jets draft pick, of course, having a very good performance as an offensive driver and finisher with 2 goals, 2 assists, and a +2 to his name for the game's first star. Definitely the biggest difference maker for them on the ice. Let's see. Austin Elliott, of course, a UMass Lowell commit, had a pretty steady game. Didn't have to get tested too often as London outshot Kitchener 41-25. But made the saves that he had to with 23 stops in the victory. What a year it's been from him. Virtually impossible to defeat in the regular season, and of course is undefeated so far in the playoffs as well. Good statement performance by London there. Let's see. Even more of a one-sided game in the QMJHL with Rimouski defeating the Shawinigan Cataract 7-0. What's most remarkable is that the offense was kind of done by committee in this game for Rimouski. Of course, Jacob Matthew, who was the game's first star, had 2 goals and 2 assists and a +5. Really did a lot of damage. But, beyond that, I mean, there wasn't a single other repeat goal scorer other than him. So, 7 goals by 6 different players, really getting it done. A lot of good plus minuses across the board, such as Alexander Blaze, who had a 1 goal, 2 assist, and +4 performance, which actually didn't earn him a star, surprisingly. Definitely a big contributor to what went right for them, which they got a lot from a lot of different players in this game. Mathis Lengevin had 24 saves in the shutout, as he was quite reliable between the pipes and helped them finish the job in a game in which they outshot Shawinigan 41-24. Also, a phenomenal day on the draw for the Rimouski Centers as the Oceanic won the face-off battle 44-21. Let's see. Gonna provide a bit of a an update on the table for the U18s. And just check in really on how the standings in the different groups are shaping up. Let's see. Yeah, so over in Group A, Finland are currently top of the table, but I imagine that that's going to change as they don't have a lot of time left to erase their current 4-1 deficit in this game. But they currently stand at 7 points, so though, yeah, you can probably bet that Canada is about to assert them. Also, shout out to Danny Briere and Brent Flair for being in attendance at this game. Definitely, you know, I heard that they were doing some pretty intense scouting work, including there, but really doing their due diligence and showing out to Texas and seeing some of the top prospects. And of course, you can imagine some guys I'm really glad to see that they have eyes on in this game specifically. But meanwhile, Slovakia is behind them at those two with 5 points to their name so far. Latvia with 2, and of course Norway is at the bottom with just 1 to this point. Over in Group B, the U.S. is at top, undefeated so far, 3 wins, 9 points, 20-5 goal differential, which really good showing by the U.S. NTDP in this so far. I was really impressed with their performance in their victory against Sweden yesterday, although I was also disappointed by some of the Sweden's top prospects as well. It was both that they played well and their opposition didn't really show up the way that they should have. Kind of a combination. Sweden with is nevertheless still second with 6 points. Germany right behind them with 5. Czechia is 4th with 4. Switzerland is at the bottom, yet to have recorded a point. And I guess their tournament's done. Now that I think on it, not the showing that they really wanted to have. I'm sure, but yeah, the group stage, really good prospect views. To this point, some pretty satisfactory showings from some top guys, though some kind of leaving some to be desired. Really, I cut Anton Frondell some slack for how the game went yesterday because of the circumstances under which he was playing under. But it also did kind of expose some weaknesses that we just know we have. That we know he has his profile also that have just been kind of ongoing issues. Like his ability to play in tight space is probably one of the biggest question marks about him. And also, I think his transition game is it's still lacking. It seems to be that he just plays his best hockey when he has time and space to make decisions. But there's still time for a lot of these guys to change some of their habits and develop more complete profiles. Wow. Also quite a goal and quite an empty netter there from Brady Martin, scoring from his own end to put a bow on this one. As Canada wins 5-1 against Finland, provided that there is not another empty calorie goal in these final 10 seconds. Despite being outshot by Finland 40-20 in this matchup, what a PDO game it was for them. And I think that wraps up this week's Dev Block.
Excellent. You know what I find very odd about the NHL right now? The fact that they still haven't announced when the fucking draft lottery is.
I believe it's on May 7th.
Oh. I haven't seen anything formal yet, but that might also just be me being dumb.
Yeah, I have like this sort. They're kind of ambivalent on it. I think. No, I could have swore I saw something that I could have swore for certain that it was on the 7th, and I was ass mad because it was the same day as the fucking WHL draft. And I was like, great, now I can't give something I'm about equally invested in its full attention because this takes priority. But that might have been um, that might have just been an insider that was either given bad info or let something slip that he shouldn't have. But who knows?
My favorite.
I don't remember where I even saw that, to tell you the truth. Yeah, we need an official date. Like, let's see, what is this? Oh my god. Yeah, never mind. I thought this source right here might have something firm, but I do not see anything yet. Uh, well, that's disappointing. It's not at all surprising.
You know, one thing that I'm very confused about
Mm-hmm.
the the misaligned statements from the media about the potential of Quenneville and Anaheim. Because what I'm intrigued about is the fact that obviously this all started with Murphy, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
And I've seen, Saravalli and Bucci Gross echo the sentiment that the Ducks have spoken and interviewed him. But I've also seen reports that the Ducks have allegedly offered him the position,
Yep.
which is kind of crazy when, yesterday, and not that anything Saravalli says is worth shit, but the sentiment of there's still multiple interviews that need to be done in the process effective, April 26th. But then there's also the same reports coming out that he has an offer for the position makes me kind of wonder who the fuck who's who's lying is effectively who has the bad intel is what I'm curious about. And we'll never know. But very, very odd to me that we're getting reports that he's still early in the process, but he also has an offer. Like, as somebody who's been in the job interview cycle for major corporations and various senior leadership level roles recently, usually you don't have an offer while other people are still considering interviews in the like it's just very, very, very odd with the timing of the statements with the media.
Yeah. Um, like, I mean, I think on it, and it's like, uh, you know, the the only thing that would have made sense is that they're just sort of like conducting like a sham hiring process, wherein they just uh, look at other candidates for formality purposes. But like you only really see that in the NFL because of the Rooney Rule. Like the NHL doesn't really have that regulations of that type that necessitate that, so it doesn't really make sense for Anaheim to do that if they already have their guy. So obviously somebody's shit really stinks here.
And yeah, the intrigue to me is if it feels so bizarre in this like instance because we know that Verbeek interviewed like upwards of 30 or 40 candidates 2 years ago So, like, why the sudden change in direction and in philosophy of like you were so thorough to find a replacement to Akins, and Akins was a fucking awful coach, but now you're taking a far less likely, a far less similar approach. Like, why be less thorough in your process when you actually have a roster capable of accomplishing things that are going to, in an even worse term of events, put the team in the national spotlight? Like, the Ducks are young, they're good. They're not great yet, but they're good. And this is a team that could have a strong number of national games in, 2026, 27, depending on how the next season goes. And, like, with all of the Quenneville shenanigans with the Brad Aldrich situation, why would you be so quick to rush into a potential PR disaster?
Yeah, like it's interesting because I mean we know effectively that the explicit intention for 25-26 is to return to playoff hockey and generally to ascend to contendership status as quickly as possible, uh, which is within their right to do so, given how long the process of it being a tenable option has been. With that in mind, I feel like that you know, I feel like taking that next step is something that requires even more delicacy, possibly than which even though that can, having the guy to lead the charge when it comes to cutting teeth matters a lot as well, and does require scrutiny. But it might take even more so to, you know, pick the guy who's the right one to take the next step. So that in that process, you also have to think about whether or not it will be received well, if it sets the tone for the organizational culture in the proper way, also, because it still matters at that point, too. And I don't really get that indication at all if that's the direction that they're opting to go in.
Yeah, like, it's definitely going to be, if this is the direction that they elect to go in, um, I really wonder. I really just wonder if the team is actually going to like do the right thing. And I know that that's a really interesting thing to say. But I hate what I fucking I hate what how the Stan Bowman thing culminated. I like how Al McIsaac's situation, though, on the flip side of it, where in the case of Al McIsaac has not worked in professional hockey really. He works as a member of the Ukrainian Hockey Advisory Board, but like he's not even his main job has nothing to do with professional hockey. So like at least one of the fucking bozos from the Chicago leadership team that led to that actually like isn't making a shitload of money or getting paid to be in the NHL. Like at least one guy fell on the sword and actually was held like legitimately held accountable for his actions and seems remorseful for what occurred by not working in the NHL or even trying at this point. Like I I don't know what Anaheim, if Anaheim does this, I do not know what they can do to convince me as a fan to believe in the culture of the business after this. And we'll see. It's going to be very, very difficult to, buy in if this is the route that they elect to go on. Um, I think there's going to be for this to work for me, there needs to be a massive commitment organizationally and with the media and with the fan base to, sexual assault victims awareness, rehabilitation, being like they need to do a better job and really be more vested than ever in that community, in the philanthropy, if they're going to go in this direction. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to support that organization moving forward. As a fan that, despite not attending games, does buy a substantial amount of merchandise like from their team store directly. This, if they don't do more to make this feel morally like like that Joel Quenneville is a better person and working towards good, a la Michael Vick, 20 years ago. It's like I don't see myself buying anything and funneling money into the organization until he's gone. Yeah. Man, that took a sour note.
Yeah.
But on a positive side, Dylan Strome scored a goal, so there's that.
Yep.
Good old reliable Strome.
Catching the replay on that. Yeah, nice. Just real like drive for the net there off the puck. Gotta love it. Great backhand too.
It's I love me some Dylan Strome.
Mm-hmm.
Strome. Strome if you want to. Strome around the world.
It's really interesting thinking about on like a surface level, like and at the time of when it happened, like he was kind of an exemplifier of the phenomenon of you know uh, a poorly thought out and seemingly poorly fated third overall selection, which, as we've seen, over the last 2.5 decades, has been a spot to miss at quite frequently. But his career has aged so much better than a good number of other picks you could have said the same thing about at that same spot within that time frame. Like he and PLD have had just like pretty good, pretty damn good, I'd say. Even I'll change the modifier there a little bit. Reclamation project status in just a way that is really something you have to smile upon a bit.
That series going on right now has to have one of the highest concentrations of third overall picks I can recall.
Yep.
Like with PLD, Strome, and Coach Kaniemi all involved. And we're missing one, I believe, due to injury.
Yep.
Which is pretty funny that I just assume that Kirby Doc is always injured.
Yeah. Also, KK is not in this particular
Ah,
sense.
you're right. That says all it needs to say about just Barry Kotkaniemi of how forgettable that he is. That like I could literally watch him play for Carolina 2 nights ago, or because I didn't catch the Carolina game live today. So like the fact that I could see Kotkaniemi play within the last 72 hours and still think he plays for the Habs because he's such a non-factor every night, um, really says quite a bit about him.
Yeah.
Man, I almost feel bad for that slip.
Doc
Almost.
also like it's funny because I didn't even like go for like an emphatic point out there because like it's just of course this is the second year in a row where this has happened but like that knee surgery that he got in late February was besides being the same knee that kept him out as far back as game 2 of 23-24 like is just it kind of exemplifies how forgettable that he is that because this sort of thing has become a ritual but like this was kind of destined because like both he and KK were major overthinking it picks at third overall and Doc is just like a pretty forgettable player even when he is healthy if we're being real so it's like that's another one where you kind of can't be blamed for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But hey, he and Colton are Keaton Verhoff's cousins, so
You know, I think the other thing that really gets me with the KK pick is like the amount, I would have thought Rob Ford was the GM of the Habs with how much crack he needed to smoke to pick Coach Kaniemi over fucking Kachuk. And I'm not even a big Brady Kachuk like fan as like Brady Kachuk weirdly is kind of what people thought Dylan Strome was of like great power forward, great vision, great toolkit. Gotta be one of the worst fucking skaters I've ever seen in the NHL. Like Brady, like I'm gonna rephrase that. Brady Kachuk is the worst skating star player in terms of offensive production I think I have ever seen. Like that dude is on his ass at least 5 or 6 times a game, entirely on his own inability to stay afloat. Like if that's why Montreal didn't take him over Kotkaniemi, who doesn't have the offensive aptitude to be anything more than what he's been, is crazy.
indeed, yeah, it gives me like 2012 draft vibes. This conversation, just like thinking about those high pick D men and like how they busted hard. Sometimes it wasn't their fault, but they weren't even the best options even in their TY. The ironic thing about that whole dynamic, though, and I kind of forgot about this, but it was reminded of it recently by my boy Chris Haynes. Uh, Maybe this isn't even arguably the case, but comparably compared, in, in contrast, just thinking about this in a relative sense, like compared to uh, how scouting actually was and how the drafting procedure actually was, uh, you know, at the time that it occurred. Brian Burke actually did rank Morgan Riley #1 of all defensemen in that draft class, and it's like that guy has had so many duds across his career. Although a recent exception we did discuss was the PWHL CBA, ironically. Uh,
Yeah.
there were a talent evaluation where I can actually applaud him in contrast with some of the stupidity that was going on that year. I will give him that, like him recognizing Morgan Riley as being significantly better than the likes of Ryan Murray and Griffin Reinhardt is something I had to give him his flowers for.
looking back on that class, specifically the defensemen, is just so fucking amusing in hindsight of like, how did so many of these guys just not like I remember Anaheim kind of getting the rod for selecting Lindholm at 6, and he ended up, if it wasn't for the injuries that he's had, like he's probably, right up there with Riley. He's not as good as Riley. He in terms of the full, what he brings to the table. But like two really good guys that were, maybe not as well hyped. But I mean, hey, not everybody could have had as bad of a draft that night as Buffalo, who somehow struck out on Grigorenko and Gergensons in the top 15. And I'm not saying, like, it's not that Gergensons is a bad player,
No.
but you got a true 4C in the first round with, Tomas Hertl going 3 picks later, Toivo Teravainen, Andrei Vasilevsky, Tom Wilson, like, that run of forwards, including Scott Laughton, which, like, say what we will about Scott Laughton, he still had more offensive upside than Simkins Gergensen.
But worse on ice impacts overall. Like, the thing
Yes.
is that the defense that Lawton gets praised for is imaginary. Like, he's just an
Yes.
offensive-minded player that just, like, he, who doesn't have enough offense to compensate for his lack of defensive acumen. And as I pointed out, like, you are not going to have your underlyings or your expected goal shares improve while playing with this man ever. Like, I genuinely think Gergensons is a better addition to our roster than Scott Laughton, like, when looking at the totality of things.
The one thing I will always look back on with Gergensons is I've never seen a player more abused in their deployments than he was in 2018-19. He's going to be one of the only forwards I've ever seen to have a defensive zone deployment rate of 84%.
Yeah. I actually kind of even recall that maybe even being slightly higher, but that might have just been me, like, embellishing how brutal that was for him, just like
So,
subconsciously.
in context, 84% 5-on-5, 88% all situations.
Makes sense.
Like, Phil Housley, what the fuck did he do to get that deployment?
Yeah, just think about, like, the rate of, like, shorthanded defensive zone face-offs he'd be taking to tack that on. Like, and that's a pretty high-stakes situation to be on, especially as a guy who probably was by and far their best penalty killer at that time.
I think the even scarier stat about that season is the fact that he had a points per 60 greater than 1 with that deployment and an expected plus minus of only negative 4.9. Like, I don't know how many players could have done that well with that level of just bullshit deployment.
He worked harder than I heard fucking Craig Button talking about players who are raised on farms in Canada were for like fucking like 3 minutes during a broadcast yesterday. Like, I was like, okay, I get the point.
Like, and I think the reason, I'm not saying that when he retires, Gergensons belongs in the Buffalo Ring of Honor. But, like, I don't know if there's a guy who I can say in the last 30 years who worked as hard as he did under as bad of conditions for so little outcome. Like, I don't know if there's a guy who's put in as much effort as he did to get absolute. I just think of the Dolph Ziggler turnaround promo of I work and I work and I work and I get nothing back. And I feel like that was just Gergens's whole fucking career in Buffalo of like, this dude just would do everything in his power every night and the team would just not
Oh,
do a goddamn thing for him. Like, love to see him play him, playing meaningful hockey in Tampa Bay. Like, he deserves it.
100%. Also, I had as visceral of a reaction as I did because Carlson was sitting right on the doorstep on the power play, and it just sort of skimmed right off of like the heel of his blade. I was like, damn, that was lethal. Like, that was about as good of a chance as you're gonna get. But it reminded me, the I was like reflecting on like his dev career with some homies not too long ago. I might have even brought this up, but I'll bring it in front of an audience because it's good. I was like, he is a rare Massachusetts-born, albeit not raised, player to have played in the OHL, and I do like that. We have sort of a marker on like recent London Knights history, and my homeboy Jack's like, I looked up his elite prospects. I looked at his elite prospects as I was curious. I didn't realize he played for the New Jersey Titan, but that's not important. He spent he played a good amount of time in the Calder Cup playoffs with Hershey, which that is the most important part here because my message is that John Carlson is a bust. One of the worst takes in history. Just literally, like thinking about that. Anyone who plays in the AHL is a bust take. It just literally feels like my. Every time I think about it, it feels like my hope for humanity, which already dwindles by the day, it just somehow decreases exponentially every time.
And I haven't even really brought up, the crazy fact of like, who would have thought an NHL legend like Gabriel Landeskog would decide to play in the AHL at 32 years old to ruin his career?
Oh, that's good.
I've been waiting for the podcast for that one.
That's a pipe bomb right there. Damn.
And I think that is a great segue into the big finish this week.
So, I mentioned the WHL draft in passing, which is something that is a process we can confirm that is taking place on May 7th. But I believe the start time is 5 p.m. Eastern time. Definitely something I'll be monitoring. We kind of know beyond a shadow of a doubt now with how the draft lottery played out as to who the first overall pick is going to be. As exciting as the Liam Pugh versus Maddox Schultz debate was for a while. And as I not so subtly alluded to on X, but this is the way I stand on this topic. We already saw Regina have a very, very disappointing run as a team with Connor Bedard when it came to adequately supplementing the surrounding talent with him during that era, ergo their disappointing playoff runs. I'm going to take a firm stance on this and say that Regina, you're drafting a very talented player who is part of this great succession of WHL forwards that we've seen spring up in these few years. He is a hometown boy. He's playing for. He's going to be playing for his team after being developed locally. He's lifelong fan. Very very skilled skater. Very smart player overall. I really really hope that if you're going to go this route and you're determined, you know, for this to be your next phase, you really, really gotta do better with your roster construction than you did on your last run. because it's going to be really hard to come back from this and have faith in top prospects, have faith coming from top prospects, their families, their representation. If you manage to get this wrong a second time in a row.
Yeah, mine's a little delayed this in terms of timeline of events, but really wanted to acknowledge the success of, the U.S. women's national team collecting another world championship. Um, Really big for them to finish the job and, effectively, actually do the job, win, and, head into really the PWHL playoffs with the United States collecting another world championship, especially as we head into an Olympic year next year, really raising the profile of Canada and US's rivalry for next year, but also really hoping we see some the expansion of the game. Love to see that we're going to have, the Canada rivalry. Love to see that we're going to see probably more international players in the PWHL next season, with the Vancouver expansion announced on Wednesday and the pending announcement of what we believe to be Seattle this coming Wednesday. Just, really good to see the U.S. win as, they continue to try to break into the U.S. TV market.
Oh yeah. It's really like good to see. Not surprising, really, but it was good to see their how well received their attempts to branch into other markets were, and the turnout they got at those games, and that it's translated into something that's viable for them long term. I'm pretty excited about what's this next phase in the early history of this league. But yeah, I'm glad we were finally able to make it back and present something for you. I feel like maybe I'm shaking off the rust a little bit, but I am glad that the somewhat normal activity rate has been able to resume in terms of our creative output recently, and I am eager to bring you even more. I have a lot planned for the coming times in terms of written content. We'll be back, presenting these episodes more frequently. Maybe some other video content will come about. Maybe some live reactions to things. We'll see what comes along in these coming times. It's going to be pretty good. Thank you for your patience throughout, this slow down period that we've had. But also more positively, thank you to everyone who is tuning in, who tuned in tonight. Thank you to everyone who's checking us out on Spotify and YouTube. We'll see you again next week. Take care, everybody. Have a great night.